Podcast.
Hey, I got a bone to pick.
Guys, I am so fired up.
Sleep deprived and all, I'm happy to be here.
You probably cut up your hot dog. You don't need it on a bun.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the DTF Podcast here on the Field of 68 Media Network. It's been a while since we connected with you guys, but that's because all of us are out here working. Fanta right now is in Louisville for the TBT. You've been all over the place, Fanta. You're calling TBT games. You're calling Team USA games. You are calling NBA games on the NBA app with yours truly, as well as T.O. I'm heading to the Bahamas next week to do some games for the University of Louisville, and I will be joined there by T.O. if he is allowed to lead the country. T.O. is somewhat of a wanted man at this point. He is the criminal enterprise here on the Field of 68. T.O., you got some problems with the law, man. Can we talk about it here? Can we talk about what you did?
I got pulled over on a highway today for going 62 and a 60. Times are hard, and I'm not even kidding. Like, this cop was sitting in the right lane of a 3-lane in Anderson County, which is nowhere county. And basically, because I passed him, he got a nice look at my license plate. He was going 55 and a 60. I was going 62 and a 60. He pulls me over, and my license plate is a month overdue. And because he was having his day, he decided to give me a ticket. So now I got to fix that. I think my sticker got lost in the mail because we moved. So, now I got to go back down to Anderson County. It'd be about an hour drive just to get down to the courthouse down there. So interesting enough, but I should be able to get out of the country.
Here's the good news.
All
We
right.
already know how you look in orange.
True. That is also
You've worn those colors before.
Valid point. Valid
Fair
point.
Fair enough. Guys, it's been a while since we were able to connect on a podcast here, but I've been spending time with you guys. You were able to call games together down at Peach Jam. I was not cool enough to be invited to call a game with Fanta down at Peach Jam. Apparently, Fanta does not like me. I got the invite from T.O. for the name from T.O. to go to Louisville and go to the Bahamas. But, every time Fanta's doing a game down there at Peach Jam, I never get the invite, Fanta.
I tried to get you on there.
Okay, so first off, not my circus, not my clowns in the assigning department. Secondly, you two are going to be able to go to the Bahamas on Louisville's international trip here. They're 4-4. And this starts with me being here right now in Louisville and Louisville people hitting me because I'm here. So it's by fortune. All right. I've been in Freedom Hall. I feel like I live there right now at Freedom Hall, which was built in 1956. And I got to tell you, fellas, I don't think anything structurally has been updated since the building was built in 1956, making it a really cool building to be in. But the other day, all right, some of the Louisville people come up to me and say, "What are you doing next week?" I said, "Well, I think I might be back here at Freedom Hall for the basketball tournament, TBT, $1 million on the line right now. And we're going to be down to 16. We're going to be down to 8 teams by the end of tonight as we do this show." I said, "Why? I think I'm going to be in Louisville. Aren't you going to be here?" They go, "Well, no, the current team, the team we've got for this upcoming season, we're going down to the Bahamas and playing a couple of games." They're like, "Oh, we were going to ask if you wanted to go in the Bahamas." I'm like, "Oh man, I'm excited I can't wait for TBT quarterfinals, but the Bahamas sounds really nice right now." I'm on day 10 of like a 12-day swing here of games and action. They go, "Oh, so you can't make it?" I said, "I don't think so." They're like, "Well, do you know a couple other guys who would go down to the beach and vacation and watch some basketball with us?" So I didn't help out some rando. I said, as a matter of fact, I do. And now you two are going to send me a video from some Atlantis Bahamas club like you did when you two were in Vegas. And my ass was sitting in the cold Northeast, and I get this video of T.O. looks like he's in outer space dancing, and it's
with the tucked in white t-shirt. He had the tucked in white t-shirt into his slacks.
So I just know next week that's what's going to be sent. Time is a flat circle. All this stuff comes around, and now you two are going to be on the beach.
T.O., I will say
I'll be mowing my lawn in New Jersey.
We'll be at the Baja Mar, not Atlantis. We'll be at the Baja Mar.
We'll be at the Baja Mar. And don't worry, I won't send you any videos of us riding on jet skis or going down water slides or maybe just sunbathing. I definitely won't send you any pictures of like the nice maybe a daiquiri, maybe
Remember
a
this
pina
time last
colada.
year? Remember this time last year I was getting ready for a wedding? You said, this is such an exciting time in your life. Today I got a text, hey, the laundry's waiting for you when you get here.
No, she didn't say that. No.
I'll be in the basement tomorrow.
I'm not allowed to do laundry anymore because I've messed it up so many different times. One, apparently I don't fold laundry the right way. Two, apparently I don't put laundry away the right way. Three, apparently there's different ways to wash. I thought you just hit the start button on the washing machine. Like if it's a certain kind of shirt, you got to wash it a certain kind of way. You can't put bathing suits in the dryer. Nobody told me that until I was 39 years old.
Suits in the dryer?
Apparently not.
What kind of silk drawers you wearing?
I have
suits in the dryer.
I have absolutely no idea. This is what I've been told. This is what I've been yelled at about. This is how I've gotten in trouble, and this is why I'm not allowed to do the laundry anymore.
This sounds like weaponized incompetence.
You're not wrong.
That sounds like weaponized incompetence. I don't mind doing laundry. To me, like that's just such a non-issue. It's quick. You're done in 10 minutes. Everything's done. The wife's
10
happy.
minutes.
10 minutes.
What kind of dryer do you have?
It takes you 10 minutes to do laundry.
What are you hand drying stuff? No, you just throw it in there. You go back in an hour and it's ready to go. You just have to fold it. I'm good with that.
That's the problem.
Minutes. That's 10 minutes of work.
It takes you 10 minutes to fold a load of laundry.
Yeah, less.
The real listeners in here will remember the last time we talked about laundry on this here channel. We were talking in Vegas about Chipotle. But that's you have to be a hardcore. See, now the network.
Do you think that video still exists,
remember that.
Do you think that video still exists?
No, it exists in the interweb, but it will not be publicized. The last person who publicized that video, who I had it get taken down by, was Me Tooley.
Yeah, Me Tooley. I forgot about that. That was a fun night. That was when you actually decided to come with us to Vegas instead of bailing on us.
Hey, by the way, can we talk about Chipotle for a second? The fall off of Chipotle.
No. It's back up.
Okay.
Their portion sizes is what I refer to. But I've heard that the CEOs come out. But I went to Chipotle last week and I got the most generous portion that I've gotten in quite some time. What I don't understand is this with Chipotle. Why would you be conservative on the portions? There's so much stuff on that board between the meats and the cheeses and the rice and everything. Pour it in. They're making more in the back. You see them cooking it live.
Yeah.
Don't you want people to keep coming back? You think
I went right when it's crazy. I went right when it was open. It felt like I was chewing on like chicken bits that they had put in a blender and just spun it up. And they're like, this is part of it. It's disgusting.
I never go to Chipotle.
I was a huge Chipotle guy 2 years
ago.
It used to be 2 years. No, like 8 years ago when the first concept of like fast food burritos came out, Chipotle, there was nothing like Chipotle. But now I got a Pancheros down the street. That's good. But if I can, we got a little mom and pop shop called Ma and Pa's Tex-Mex with some guy that moved up here from like the Rio Grande Valley. I don't know. He's from Texas somewhere. And it's called Ma and Pa's Tex-Mex. The best
Ma and Pa's shop
burritos
called
I've
Ma
ever
and Pa's.
Yeah, it's called Ma and Pa's. They got birria tacos there. They got brisket burritos that are just absolutely elite.
My lunch go-to is this place called Kairos Mediterranean, which is ironically enough somewhat like Chipotle. It's just Mediterranean food. It's delicious. I don't know if you guys have ever had it.
So Greek burritos, like a lot of feta cheese in there.
Yeah, I just do salads and chicken. It's
feta
really
cheese
good.
and black olives all over the place.
No. Yeah, it's nice, man.
No, really I'm out on Greek food.
I'm out on Chipotle. How are you out on Greek food?
I don't like feta cheese. I don't like black olives. Any Greek thing I get,
I don't do feta cheese. I
don't
do a ton of olives. I don't do a ton of feta cheese, but it's mostly like the chicken and the red pepper feta, which is like a nice mix. It's good.
This might be my most controversial food take, but if you like olives, right, there's something seriously wrong with you because olives are absolutely disgusting. Black olives are disgusting. Green olives are disgusting. People that put blue cheese in olives and then put them in martinis, that's disgusting. I don't get it. I don't get the appeal.
I sell them.
So gross.
Last time I had an olive, I think, was when we were in Italy. You eat around the pit, and it's hard to eat. It's got to be. It's not great. It's not great. No, I mean it's not. I found in
I love olive oil. I don't like olives all that much.
Yeah.
Two things here. Number one, I found David Paget, who's been, by the way,
super nice guy,
great guy, and he played his ass off back in his playing days. He played hard.
Good player.
Good player. And David is tall. I mean, I am small, but sitting next to him here doing these TBT games over here in Louisville. So I said to David, where do I go around here for dinner? He sent me to Volare or Volare, depending on how you want to pronounce it. Terrific Italian restaurant. Perhaps the best part about the restaurant is you just go near the bar and you're guaranteed to run into a Louisville fan. And I have heard countless more Rick Pitino, Kevin Willard, Mick Cronin, old school Ville stories that I can't even believe. I can't tell on the show that have been just so good. But my biggest takeaway, fellas, and this is a fun thing because you're going now to the Bahamas. I really believe that Louisville and Kentucky, there is so much hunger for these two schools to get going that when you combine the energy of the coaches, so Pat Kelsey's got this area energized as all get out. Mark Pope is Kentucky because he played there and he gets it, right? Part of the untouchables. You know how we talk in sports, Rob, about how the rise is the most fun part? Like you're a Phillies fan. So the Phillies are now supposed to be great. But the best part is when they're, and they are. But the best part is when they're on the rise. I think we'll see it in our numbers. We normally do because the interest is there. I think we're in for really fun upcoming years between Louisville and Kentucky again, because there's something to be said about newness and hope. And it feels like here, especially here in Louisville right now, and I think they got it right with Pat and the roster they built. The rise is the best part. And the rise is about to begin here in Louisville. They're so starved. They're packing Freedom Hall with 8,000 just to watch their alumni. If that's what they're doing now, imagine, the current team got introduced the other night, complete standing ovation. The rise is the best part. We're about to watch the rise begin for these programs.
It's going to be fun, man. And guys, without seeing them in person, we're going to see them next week. Like that roster he's put together. Plus, Pat can coach. We all know that. Fanta and I had him in person a couple times. Rob, you guys did some things at the beginning of last year, the Field of 68 season opener or whatever we called it. Like dude can coach. The dude can coach, and he's put together a roster that's going to be, I think, is a tournament team. And you want to talk about a Louisville fan base, one that's massive, and second that absolutely they're already jumping on board. And Pat could have handled it better when it comes to like being the third choice and the third option, and then he goes out there and just crushes the portal. I mean, it's good. It's going to be fun times in Louisville. I'm really excited to see. And keep in mind, and we're going to revisit this argument again, I'm sure, the metrics are going to like the ACC better this year. They are not going to be as far off anymore. You guys wait and watch, because the bottom is now coming up. And when the bottom comes up in a league, life's going to be good, and it's going to be looked at as a much better league. You wait and watch.
Yeah. So just on your point, Fan, about the rise is the best part. Like I think what fans will see, one is a level of entertaining basketball and kind of an up and down style that is going to make you want to keep tuning in. Like I don't know if they're guaranteed to be like a top 10 team this year. I think that they're trending in the right direction. I think that there are, it's not a perfectly constructed.
If Louisville messes around and they get ranked a couple of weeks in the top 25 this year, guys, like we're
but and also
right now, you should be thrilled. They make the tournament. They should be head over heels.
And you're heading into a season where the expectation is like, give me something that I want to root for again, right? Like, and I don't want to make this sound like Louisville basketball needs to be something where it is just kind of moral victories and like, if we're close, if we're at least competing, that's fun. No. What I'm saying is that you have a roster that should probably be a tournament team and most likely will be in and around the back end of the top 25 for most of the year, right? I don't think that they're good enough to knock off Duke in the ACC. I think that they have enough on this roster that you can make it, tell the story, make an argument. They can be as good as anybody outside of Duke in the ACC. Louisville could finish second in the ACC. Louisville could finish probably seventh in the ACC. There's the gap there isn't really all that big. But my point is that you have something here where you can dream. Like you can watch this team play and say, I just saw that this team could beat Duke in the Yum Center, right? Oh, I just saw them do this. This team can make it to a Sweet 16. Like there's a level of being able to get behind something that you enjoy, that you love watching, and that you look forward to every week. Fan, and we talk about, you mentioned the numbers that we would see on the pod, right? The places where we always get the most traffic and the most views are the ones where the fan base is at a point where they are just addicted to the idea of watching them play and watching them get better. We saw it for a while with Purdue. We saw it for a while with Texas Tech and kind of the numbers that we did, right? We're seeing it right now with Illinois. And I think with Louisville fans this year, it is the fact that they just had 2 awful seasons. And now you're stepping into a year where it's like, 1, this team's going to be fun. 2, they got a chance to be pretty good. And 3, this coach has gotten us like fired up about what is going to happen. Yeah. I can't wait to see what it is. I can't wait to see how they put it together. And let me ask you this. So the one stat that stands out to me, T.O., is our friend Evan Miyakawa put this together. He runs evanmia.com, analytics site as good as you're going to find anywhere out there. There hasn't been a team in the last 3 years since the portal really took off that returned fewer than 15% of their minutes at the high major level and found a way to get to the NCAA tournament. Utah State is the only one that did it. Utah State is a Mountain West Conference school, very good school, not one of the now Power 5 programs in college conferences in college basketball. Louisville, Kentucky, Arkansas, Memphis. There's a whole bunch of really big name schools and big name brands that are retooling their rosters like this. Like, what are you expecting to see from these groups, and how hard do you think it's going to be to kind of put everyone together? And what is the value of going on a trip like this in the middle of July?
Fanny, you want to take it? We're going to me.
I went to you first, Tio, but whatever you want.
Okay. Yeah. No, hey, look, there's a couple of things. Is you might not have roster continuity, but you have player coach continuity. He brought some guys over. I think that's another huge point of this whole thing. James Scott comes over. He's listed at 6'11". That dude's every bit of 7 foot. I don't care what he's listed at. Like, he was a CAA all rookie team guy. He's big time shot blocker, good enough athlete to play in the ACC. We've all known that. He brought Rain Smith with him, who's going to be a settling force. Kobe Rogers, who's going to be sitting out this year, but at the same time, you have that influence and you have that guy that guys can look to. Like, this is how we do things. This is how we do things. So there's plenty of talent, guys. I mean, you look up and down that roster, they're there, and there's enough size. There's enough scoring. There's enough everything. So I'm bullish on Louisville. Where they're going to finish in the ACC, I'm still kind of looking around and checking all that stuff out. But right now, there's no reason to think they're not an NCAA tournament team. Whether that's a 3-4 seed or in the first 4 window, I don't know. But I do think it's an NCAA tournament team. I haven't gone that deep into diving it. This trip literally came to us 2 days ago, Doster. And thank you for that, Fant. I didn't realize you were behind the whole thing. Thank you for that. But so I'm kind of catching up. But when you look up and down from, Javon Hadley, who was a really good player at Colorado,
yes, he was.
Corin Johnson, who was 6th man of the year in the Pac-12, Terrence Edwards, who at James Madison was awesome. He wasn't good. He was awesome. There's just a lot to really like. And then they're also kind of setting up for the future too. They took 2 guys that they're going to sit out in redshirt and let them rehabilitate themselves and then be ready for next year. And guys, I feel like this guy gets lumped in a lot and we just kind of forget about him. 1, because he played at Wisconsin, sure. But 2, because his numbers aren't loud, but he's just freaking solid all the time. They got Chucky Hepburn, who's a really good player, and he's about the right stuff. And I'm just really excited to see. I think Abubakar Traore, who goes by Kadir, he's going to be a better player than people realize. This is a good team. And while no returning pieces, there is coach-player continuity, and there is staff continuity. So I think that's just as big a piece as it is to have roster continuity.
Yeah, and I also think we mentioned that stat, Fana, or I mentioned that stat, and I think it's important to note that there was very little. This doesn't happen very much ever, right? You very rarely see a situation where there are 13 scholarships that you have to fill, right?
Mhm.
Especially when you have a program that is as historically good as a Kentucky or a Louisville or an Arkansas. Like it's never happened before. And now we have all of these teams that are doing it. That one of them is gonna find a way to buck that trend this year.
Yeah,
And it's not going to stop. It's going to happen more sometimes to sitting coaches who tell players, look, I have money allocated. I have money that I'm allocating. You didn't do enough, and this is it. Transfers go two ways, right? A kid can say they want to level up. A kid can also get told the reality of the situation. So that, as much as it's an open market for the players, the coaches, they don't say it publicly because it's not a great look, but the coaches have to be careful with what they're spending. I see the scholarship limits. There's news out there today that rosters are going to head to 15, that you get the 15 scholarships, because scholarships are basically going to be meaningless now. Yes. I mean, a scholarship is going to go, you can have unlimited scholarships and do all that you want. That's great in theory. I only want 10 kids. I don't need 13 kids that weigh, because 11, 12, and 13 are probably going to be pissed off unless we have good honesty with the plan. Unless I tell a kid, look, I'm going to pay you, but I need you in year 2 with my program, not year 1. And then there's no guarantees that that's even going to follow through, because if I'm a kid, I want to play. Because if I'm going to help my monetary value, I need to play. If I don't play year 1, and honestly, that's some smart coaching too. Like if I'm a coach and I say, look, we're going to have you in this role, and then I'm going to have you in this role. If there's a good alignment there, then there's less of a chance for the kid to potentially transfer up, because he might not have been seen in the first year with the program.
Yeah. I had a mid-major head coach I was talking to at the Peach Jam, and I'm not going to mention his name for obvious reasons for what I'm about to tell you. He was looking at me. He was like, you know what? I have a great idea. He said, from now on, this is what we should do. I'm going to pay half the NIL. The school I'm going to send those kids to is going to pay half the NIL. And then once those kids get there, they can pay them whatever they want. But give them to me for 2 years. We'll develop them, and then we'll send them wherever. Just help me pay the burden on the first little bit. And I was like, that's not terrible. I love that. I'm not mad. I think as opposed to going towards 15 scholarships, I think it was more roster caps, right? That's kind of – go ahead, Fanta.
Well, what I was just going to say is what the mid-major coach failed to say is that he's going to develop them for 2 years. Year 2, he's going to make the tournament. Then he'll be the high major coach taking the kids with him.
Yeah, that's probably right.
Yeah.
That's probably right. But that was his idea. He's like, hey, you split the NIL costs with me, and then I'll hang on to him knowing he's going to go to you.
Well, right. I do think that there is a room for, and I've said this over and over again, there's room for mid-major coaches that buy all the way into the idea that we're going to bring, like, operate kind of like a JUCO. You're going to buy all the way into developing freshmen and sophomores, giving them playing time, giving them a little bit of NIL, but allowing them to have an opportunity to prove who they are. Because we can kind of get into the recruiting scene here as well, because I think it's an interesting conversation to have. But one of the things that stood out to me more than anything else at Peach Jam was, one, do you know how many top 20 kids on the 24/7 top 100 rankings for the class of 2025? Do you know how many top 20 kids are currently committed to a university? If you haven't heard by now, we have partnered with BetMGM Sportsbook. We are going to be using BetMGM lines to make all of our picks, and we'll have special offers for the listeners, the viewers of the Field of 68 throughout the year. If you haven't signed up for BetMGM yet, you can use bonus code FIELD, and you will get up to a $1,500 first bet offer on your first wager with BetMGM. The best part, all you need to do is deposit and bet $10 of your own hard-earned money to be eligible. Here's how you make it work. Download the BetMGM app and sign up using that bonus code FIELD. Deposit at least $10 and place your first wager on any game, and you will receive up to $1,500 in bonus bets if your bet loses. Just make sure that you use that bonus code FIELD when you sign up. BetMGM is going to have some fun offers available throughout the NBA playoffs. Bet insurance tokens, odds boost, and what I love, a nice parlay boost or two from time to time, as well as a ridiculous array of player prop bets for any any sport that you could possibly imagine betting on. BetMGM is and always will be the king of the prop bet. So go download the BetMGM app, use the bonus code FIELD, and sign up today. And while I've got you, a quick request. The best way to support the Field of 68 content that you get for free is to engage with us. Rate and review the podcast. Like and share the YouTube videos. Tell your friends about us. It all helps in a world where the algorithm is king. And now, back to the show.
Oh, it's got to be like 5.
It's 1.
1. Wow,
and he's the number 20 prospect. Sadiq White is committed to Syracuse.
So none of the top 19.
None of the top 19. There are 6 kids in the top 50 coming out of Peach Jam that are committed. Normally what we see in the spring before the junior year of like all these kids are playing on the EYBL circuit their last year, the Adidas circuit or whatever it is. You see that spring things kind of start settling. You see the dominoes starting to get knocked over a little bit, right? And I think what has happened with the portal is all of the focus that coaches have, all of the NIL budgeting that they are doing, all of this stuff is happening with transfers in the spring. And this means that it gets all pushed back for all of these freshmen into the fall. And so now, like, you have guys that normally would be making their commitments in late July and early August, now trimming their list to like 11 schools or 7 schools or 10 schools. So the amount of questions that a lot of these freshmen have, it's much more like, you guys know this. You go to Peach Jam, you sit with coaches, you see these guys play, and you normally get a pretty good feel for like where a kid is going to end up, right? Like you can watch a top 10 kid play and you kind of say like, look, these guys are getting him, but he's probably going to end up going to this blue blood here. Or you watch like a top 30 kid play and say, yeah, he's probably going to end up at this program, right? I don't think that there was one kid out there where it's, you can get a really good feel on where they were going outside of like, I don't want to say there were a couple that felt like a lean, but I don't know. It feels like there are so many more questions here. And I think so much of this is a result of the way that the transfer market has worked, Fanta. And then I think just to finish the point and tie it back to the mid-major guy, if you are a program, like even something that's not technically a mid-major, like an A10 program or a Mountain West program, and you lean into giving these like low 4-star, high 3-star kids ranked in that like 75 to 150 range, make sure they get something out of the deal. Say you're going to come here, you're going to start for 2 years, we're going to develop you, and then we're going to shove you off to a high major program where you're going to get a $750,000 NIL deal if you do what we tell you. Lean into that. I think that there is an opportunity to really be able to capitalize on that right now with the current marketplace. Am I crazy there?
No, you're not crazy at all. The marketplace is really, really fascinating right now for a variety of reasons. Here's my argument. Unless you are in Bill Self or John Shire's chair, there are no guarantees. So here's what I mean by that. Because you're out there saying, wait a minute, what about Dan Hurley? I'm going to get to him in a second. Bill Self is constant. It's a machine. It's a machine. They're able to get who they want. People want to play for them, and Bill Self can go and even get guys that sometimes don't fit. Remember Bill Self at the press conference this past year at the end of the season? He goes, I've been planning for next year for the last month. He saw the writing on the wall. He saw he wasn't going to make the Final Four. Bill Self's bored now in the NCAA tournament. Like he is. He expects to be in the first and second round. He wants to make the Final Four. John Shire is going to be able, he has everything at his disposal. And to his credit, has done an elite job at recruiting. And it's beyond Cooper Flag, this upcoming year's class, between Kama Malawat and Con Canupel, who I think is going to be a stud for them. And, the list goes on and on with Harris, who I think is going to be a special talent for them. Here's my point, guys. There are ripple effects to Cal leaving Kentucky and going to Arkansas. One, Arkansas with Cal, fascinating player in this scene. He's trying to convince kids to come along with him. Wait a minute, I thought I was going to be playing for the UK brand. So now Mark Pope comes in, injects a whole new energy there. Louisville hasn't been much of a player in recent years. If they've been a player, they haven't been getting results. Now Pat Kelsey gives that program a new dimension. Where does Dan Hurley fall in this? Dan Hurley looks for a certain fit. He doesn't take anybody. He doesn't take everybody. He's on top of the world, but he has gotten mentored by Jay Wright on there's a balance between taking the biggest talent versus taking who fits what you want, who fits who you are as a program. Hence, why when you're looking at UConn doesn't just hand out offers. When these kids say I got offered by UConn, it means Connecticut is genuinely interested in them. So my point in essence is we are in a fascinating time in the recruiting landscape, and it was shown in Peach Jam because of the amount of moving pieces and parts there are in college basketball. For these kids, they have the leverage and they have big pockets. And in this landscape, why would you commit early? Why do it if you can continue to see how things are going to evolve in your recruitment?
Yeah, the smart coaches will. I do think that there's going to be a pretty big change here coming up in terms of how often you see guys getting some of these 5th and 6th year transfers, right? Like the COVID year is gone. You're not going to be able to have these players that have done 5 years with a redshirt year at a mid-major transfer up as a 24-year-old and come start for your program, right? That's just not going to be something that happens in college basketball anymore because the COVID year is gone. Now, my hot take is I would love to actually see that stick around. Like, give these. I know Tio's going to laugh at me when I say that, but I wouldn't mind seeing that. I do think that smart coaches are going to find a way to be able to tap into these freshmen. And it was actually, I had an interesting conversation with one guy that was basically saying like he's going to use the end of his roster when it comes to filling all of those 15 scholarships or whatever it ends up being with guys that are, one, cheaper in terms of NIL valuations, and two, players that you're just kind of rolling the dice on. You bring them in for a year, you have them kind of operate in the role of a walk-on where they're more of a practice player than anything else, and you just see who can kind of break through. You see which of these freshmen can maybe have a chance. They're really picking up on what you're doing. They are thriving playing against the first team, and they end up getting minutes towards the end of the year. And you can find a way to be able to say like, all right, we got a 7-man freshman class coming in here. There are 2 that we really wanted, 5 that we're taking a flyer on. We're going to run 4 of them off, but this one kid proved that he can find a way to develop into our program. We're going to keep him around. So I think we're going to see a lot of that.
One more point, if you can, there's still something to be said about aggressively recruiting and getting kids that fit your identity. And a kid just loves what you're putting down. Like, I look at a Kim English, how he's recruiting for 2025, and he got Jameer Jones, who I saw last week. And, that's a huge gift for Providence and a great gift for him because he plays the right way. He's 6'6". He's long. He defends. He can fly above the rim. And they've got Jalen Harrell as well, another top 100 guy. That recruiting class is taking shape. That's a program, T.O., that's not at Duke, UConn, Kentucky brand. But I think, Terrence, it's interesting, right? In this landscape of if you're a coach like a Kim English where he's at, or, put in your ACC program, right? I'm just throw out there like a Wake Forest, right? Or even a Clemson. Like when you're not at the level of the blue blood and you've got money that you're allocating, do you sometimes say, man, I love this kid. And I know the other big whales are going to potentially want him. Maybe I can get him a little earlier if I do this, if I take the earlier shot. That's what I'm intrigued by.
Yeah. And I think what you're seeing in places like that, I'm not sure how many scholarships. Well, Providence is doing just that. They took the Oswin kid was like a high 4-star, 5-star kid, and they took him a year early, paid him a little bit, and like, we hope this is going to pan out. We need to hang on to him.
Wait for a home run.
Exactly. And then another thing too, instead of taking 3 and 4 guys per year, like people are only taking 2. And I like when it comes to freshmen, because there's no point in oversaturating what you're doing anyway. We talk about these scholarships going 15 kids. I think you're still going to see a little bit of a prevalence of a walk-on spot just every now and then. It's just you're going to be able to scholarship them, and you're going to be able to just keep them around for a while. You're not going to give them any money, but you'll be able to scholarship them, and that's huge for a lot of these kids. And throw in this is happening. I'm sorry.
Huge for them and good for your locker room.
Yeah, exactly. You're going to keep some guys like that every now and then. I think that's great. And it comes back to, there was a 5-star kid that was playing corner. Florida didn't have any scholarships left. So the guy says he's going to walk on at Florida, but they're going to pay him $1 million or something.
Right.
So it's like that only makes sense. So they're basically going roster caps instead of scholarship allotments, which, guys, I'm okay with. Like I'm okay with that. Now, even the guys that don't play, they're going to get their scholarships taken care of too. And not all the time. It depends on how you go about it. And I can see how Rob would do it. I understand that, but it also, like the guys at the end of the bench that work their nuts off every day in practice and stuff like that. Like in case you just want to have 13 and 2 guys that you just take because they're character guys. So
I could see it being like 11 and then 4 guys that you just take. And I think a lot of them, there's a lot of there's this kind of misconception that walk-ons are just like whatever, you're pulling somebody out of
no, they're
like,
good play. A lot of times
a lot of those walk-ons could go play the D3 level and be able to be really good. There's a lot of walk-ons that take walk-on positions at high majors instead of getting scholarships at low majors, right? Like there are really good players that end up in those positions, and I think a lot of them now are just going to have their scholarships played for. I do think what's interesting is, Fancy, you mentioned Providence. We haven't really talked much about BYU and what's happening at BYU on the DTF pod yet, but I think you see it in some of these traditional SEC football markets, like in Ole Miss and Chris Beard, like Arkansas, right? These places where you have a localized, rabid fan base where the university is the single most important thing. Like, to me, that is the next tier of the Blue Bloods. And I think that BYU is the perfect example. One, national fan base that also happens to be very, very prevalent in Salt Lake City and in the state of Utah. Two, it's a city and a state that has a whole bunch of money. Like at Silicon Valley, as those prices went through the roof, a lot of those companies ended up opening up offices during COVID in those mountain towns, right? In those kind of Rocky Mountain, Boise, Salt Lake, Missoula, places like that, right? And I think that what we're seeing now is those BYU boosters that care a lot about the success of BYU are starting to pour money into that program, which is why, I mean, you look at the list for AJ DeBonta, the number 1 recruit in the country, Fanta, and the teams that he doesn't have a list, but the teams that you hear most are like Alabama, Auburn, Arkansas, USC, and BYU is getting thrown into that mix as well. Like, don't be surprised if those programs, Providence kind of fits that bill as well. Like, where you have that really, really rabid, passionate, localized fan base that will put money into the program. I think we're going to see that a lot more.
I'm in agreement with you that we are in a fascinating landscape.
Mm-hmm. All right, T.O., I reached out on Twitter and I put together a bunch of questions that people are going to answer. And I want to start, before we get into the questions that those people asked, I'm going to ask you guys a question. I put together a list of the top 10 coaches in college basketball today. Okay. I sent it to you guys earlier. I know that you guys probably didn't look at it because no one pays attention to anything that I say when I put together rundowns, but it's all good. I still love you guys anyway. I'm going to roll through my top 10 and I want you guys to tell me what's right, what's wrong, where I'm dumb, where you disagree, and if there's anybody that I missed. Because there's a couple names in here that I'm thinking about that it was like really hard not to have them in here. One of them won a national championship within the last 5 years. So here's my list. Number 1, Dan Hurley. Number 2, Bill Self. I initially had 2 over 1, Self over Hurley. I think you can go either direction on those two. I would probably lean the guy that won the back-to-back titles. I'm kind of biased. I'm trying not to be biased in that, but that's where I ended up. 3, Mark Few. 4, Scott Drew. 5, Kelvin Sampson. I could be talked into any order for 3 to 5. 6, Nate Oates. 7, Matt Painter. 8, Bruce Pearl. I think all 3 of those are kind of in the same tier. And then I ended with Rick Pitino and Tom Izzo. Go ahead, T.O. Rip me a new one, man. What's wrong with it? What's right with it? Where am I crazy?
Look, this is a no-win situation because they're all great. I think, other guys you could consider. I mean,
Tony
that's kind of
Bennett
where we're at right now. You basically put all the old heads in there with Dan Hurley, the guys who have been around the longest.
Mm-hmm.
And
have had the most, like Mark Few built Gonzaga into a power and has been to 9 straight Sweet 16. Scott Drew won a national title at Baylor. 3 years ago.
A lot of money at Baylor now.
Yeah. Houston has been one of the best programs in college basketball under Kelvin Sampson for like the last 7 years. Who saw that coming? Right. So
that 8, 9, 10, I think Pitino is too low.
Too low.
I think Pearl and Izzo. This makes me. There's just a lot of guys you could interchange. Now, if you'd asked me 10 years ago with Izzo, I would be like, he's too low. But I don't. He might be too high. Izzo's like he's kind of a conundrum to me because I understand how great he is, and I understand they're always going to hang around. And I don't know. Once you get to that 9-10, there's just a lot of other people you could kind of throw into that mix. It really is kind of a tough one to even think about. And what's your barometer for current best head coach, national championships, wins, guys who does the most with the list, most with the least? I mean, like, what about academic school coaches?
Mine is like ranking them as of today in term for bringing in talent, success, like a little bit of what have you done in recent seasons, kind of a thing. Just for just clarification purposes, I had Rick Pitino at 9 simply because he was gone, left in 2017, was in Greece for a while, has made it to a tournament at Iona, which is okay,
sure, it's fair.
Should be at the tournament every year. Didn't make the tournament last season, so I get it. But
I could say this: nobody on that list wants to play Micah Shrewsbury. He's a hell of a coach, but he's not as accomplished. But he's a hell of a coach.
But he's nobody not a top 10 coach in college basketball.
No, but you get what I'm saying. What's the barometer here?
Right.
That's my only thing. What about Kyle Smith, who's been a great coach, but he's been at Washington State. And he's been at Princeton.
Right. What about Randy Bennett?
Yeah, throw him in there. He's terrific.
What about Greg McDermott, who's been to 3 of the last 4 Sweet 16s?
Who's terrific.
So McDermott and Tony Bennett were the two hardest ones for me to kind of put together. Tony Bennett's won a national title and did a whole bunch of great stuff from 2014 to 2019 at Virginia. And then it's kind of, the transfer era, it's kind of fallen off a little bit.
Well, I'm going to argue for somebody here. I'm going to argue for somebody that's got to be considered on the list. All right. And I have a rant about this. So I'm going to put my hat on here for a moment.
Hold on.
To me, the most disrespected coach in college basketball is the head coach at Southern California right now. Eric Musselman is getting buried relevance-wise for one awful year. Mm-hmm. He had one really poor year. If you asked us all a year ago, he's on this top 10 list. You know why? Mm-hmm. Up until he got there, Arkansas basketball had not been relevant since I was a baby, since the mid to late 90s. Okay? He made them go. He took them to multiple Elite Eights. He took them to 3 Sweet 16s and 2 Elite Eights. That guy had them rolling. Arkansas was one of the best programs in the country. I would argue that up until last year, he had done as good of a coaching job and building job. I know he's hard to work for. All right. I know there's young coaches out there who listen to our show and say, yeah, but I've heard horror stories.
Yeah.
Horror stories be damned. He's hard to work for. You know who else is hard to work for? Dan Hurley's not easy to work for. You think that the top of the coaching chain is easy to work for? They're trying to win effing games. So with all due respect to the list, which the only other thing I object to is I can't put Mark Few over Scott Drew. I know Few's been extremely consistent, but Scott Drew has the title. Mm-hmm. He climbed the mountain, and titles matter to me. But Eric Musselman is disrespected here. Again, watch him win at USC. Underrated thing in the Big Ten. Underrated thing in the Big Ten heading into this year. And this podcast has been called out for not liking the Big Ten. But I have a hot take. My hot take is this. This is hot. The Big Ten's national title drought, whenever it ends someday, it will end with an expansion member winning the title. How about that for a hot take? I'm betting on one of UCLA, USC, Oregon, or Washington. I'll put $50. I just need one of them to have a dream run. UCLA's already done it.
Look, I don't hate the hot take, but I am.
What about Otzelberger? What about Otzelberger? What he's done there? If you had to pick today between Izzo and Otzelberger, who are you picking?
Well, we're on the Big Ten right now for a moment, but yes.
Yeah. Right. Way to completely change the subject.
No, I don't care.
Look, I was just going to say,
dude, it's a Big Ten.
As a resident of the state of New Jersey, are we saying that Rutgers wasn't an expansion member in the Big Ten? Like, are we saying that Rutgers can't
Maryland?
win? Are we saying that Maryland can't win a national title? Is that what
Sure,
you're saying?
this helps my cause. This helps,
does help
helps
your
my
cause.
betting cause.
Kevin Willard, national champion. That has a nice ring to it.
Oh my God, I want to go to that party.
No, you don't.
Yeah, oh yeah.
As long as there's a photo booth, I'm in.
That's an Easter egg if I've ever heard one.
All right, we got a couple more questions from fans.
We're not going Brad Underwood. Brad Underwood can't.
All right, that's a perfect segue.
Close.
He's in the mix. To me,
There's
it was
just so many good coaches.
yes. Just for the
And
record,
it depends on what your barometer is.
yes.
That's my big thing.
For me, it was Tony Bennett and Greg McDermott were the two toughest ones to keep off of there, and then Musselman would be the next.
But okay, so why did you keep Tony Bennett off?
Why? Because he's
tough.
It's the thing is for today, and I just don't think in
Izzo.
the era of the portal, Tony Bennett works as well.
Izzo.
And look, I
Yeah.
get the argument. I get the argument. There's nothing for me to push back on. It's just, it's Tom. I think Izzo's built a little bit more for this era than Tony Bennett is, but we'll see this year, right? Like,
I'm going to get a text from Shear if he listens to this one.
Yeah, there you go. All right. Questions from Twitter that we got. I'm sorry if you asked these. I forgot to write down who asked the specific questions. We'll start with Illinois here. T.O., how excited should Illinois fans be about Kasparis, Will Riley, and the roster that they've put together? From what I've heard, Kasparis is going to be a PROBLEM this season.
Did you say problem? He's going to be a problem? Okay. I thought you said V. I was like, problem. No, they're going to be good. Vicic is an interesting one. Where I heard Big Z was Powell, I heard Thomas Love was Mark. So that's going to fit in the Big 12 or the Big 10 really, really well. I think they're going to be exceptional this year. They're always really good, and Underwood knows how to coach. I think they added the right pieces at the right spots, and I like what they've done adding international kids, because I'm not saying they're cheaper. Well, I probably am saying they're cheaper. You can get those guys over for good money on the dollar just because they're not getting offered near as much back where they're coming from. And I know that for a fact. So the money for some of these European kids coming over, you're going to be able to get good bang for your buck. Illinois should be excited. Somebody check on Trevor here in about 3 months.
Yeah, Vicic, he's got to get the whatever eligibility issues that Big Z dealt with. Big T is dealing with the same thing, I believe. So, the other one is Kai Boswell. I think that I'm a little worried about him coming home. I'm not going to lie. I'm a little worried about him coming back to Champaign and having localized friends kind of pull at you a little bit. Fanta, where do you stand on Illinois?
Well, I think that they will be a top 35 or so team. I don't think they're a top 20 team. They can evolve into that, but I like what they put together. I thought it was a very, very solid class. Top 10 worthy newcomers, but there's a whole lot of new on this roster. You have a 5-man freshman class, you have a 5-man transfer class here, a lot of moving pieces and parts. I love the idea and the upside and the Big Ten fit of Ben Humricius. I think he's going to be a good player for this program and a shot maker for this program. I'm not worried about Boswell. I think he can fit into what Brad Underwood does. And Trey White, to me, has untapped potential as well. Trey White, to me, has real untapped potential. And don't forget about Jake Davis or Kerry Booth. So I like them, but remember how they made last year happen. It was a weird year with the Terrence Shannon stuff. And happy for Terrence that it's behind him and that he can have a successful NBA career. And I do think he's an NBA player who's going to help Minnesota quite a bit. But I think that for them, a whole lot of new, a whole lot of changeover. If they, for me, they're a second round NCAA tournament program heading into this year. Not second.
I think
second.
Yeah, I'm not mad at that. I think Boswell is going to be a much better Big Ten fit than he was a Pac-12 fit. I think pace of play in that league. He's big. Yep. He's as wide as a door frame. Like he's just a big kid. I think he's going to fit really well for a team that didn't have a ton of point guard play because let's be honest, they had Terrence Shannon. So there's no need to inbound the ball. But Just get it moving.
Yeah, Yakushonis to me is the kid that has a chance to be a lottery pick. And
What's his name?
Kasparis Yakushonis.
Yakashonis. I like that.
I'm going with
Well
that. I
done.
don't know if that's correct. That's just what I'm guessing there. Along those same lines, Igor Demon from BYU, the Russian kid. He's real, like a real problem. All right, 2 more questions. Fanta, if you could sign a shoe deal with any shoe company in the world, who would it be and why?
Cole Hans, because I love wearing them on the broadcast. So I want to dial up Cole Hans or the Lacoste shoes with the gator on the side of them. Either one of those two. I mean, I don't need to sign a deal with a Nike, or a Puma or an Under Armour. I mean, like maybe there's upside there, but one of my favorite shoe stories. I'll be quick here. Where I'm at the Under Armour party. All right, I've told you both this story at Final Four in Minneapolis, and everybody's enjoying cocktails and appetizers. And Gary Williams walks in.
Oh, is this the one when you didn't say hi to me and you walked right by me?
That Final Four, but it wasn't this party. So we're sitting there at the Under Armour party, and it's like it was the afternoon party, low key. This is not some crazy club party. It's coaches and whatnot to settle down and have a couple minutes. And it was right when the Adidas stuff was breaking, all the Adidas scandal and whatnot. And Gary Williams walks in and he takes the microphone and the whole crowd's like ready for him to say great stuff about Under Armour. And he goes, well, best thing I could say right now is this. And he looks at the Under Armour stakeholders. At least we're not Adidas.
Yeah.
And the whole room goes, oh, well, it's the Under Armour part. I mean, we all know what the king is. It's Nike, but I would sign a deal with Cole Hans, Tio. I need the Cole Hans for my broadcast. So Cole Hans, if you're out there listening, please contact me.
I would go Hugo Boss or John H. Daniel out of Knoxville.
Nice.
That's who I would go with.
So the Air Fantas are going to be Cole Hans and the Air TOs are going to be, what was it? Johnny Knoxville?
John H. Daniel.
John H. Daniel, Johnny Knoxville Shoe Company. T.O., what college hoops player should Kamala Harris choose as her running mate for the
I'm not doing it. I'm not doing it. I'm not doing it. Not me, sir. Not me.
Wait, a player, not a coach?
What player?
Well, I can tell you who she won't be picking. We won't see Kamala and Hunter Dickinson on the same ticket. I can tell you that much. Oh God, I don't know. I have no idea who she should pick as a player, as a running mate.
Yeah. Give me Kirk Risa.
Oh gosh,
he's not born in the States. Can't do it.
Kirk Risa. Oh yeah, because that's the everything else about this scenario is very realistic. T.O.
you know who you know what?
Coleman Hawkins.
No, she should pick. I just had the name in my head here, and now I lost it. I just had a perfect name for her. Oh, keep going. It'll come back to me.
Yeah,
here.
I'm done. I'm out. I'm out of questions. We're gone.
That's it?
That's the end of the show. That's the end of the show. So we're done here. For you guys that want to tune in for next week's episode.
Oh, I got it.
Who is it?
She should pick Cam Jones. He's got a great American story. He's a kid from Memphis, Tennessee, and he is big time. And I think he'd run a great ticket. Give me Cam Jones. Fashion
correspondent for the Field of 68, Cam Jones, who, by the way, I think is a supporter of the John Fanta, Cole Haan partnership here, sponsorship deal. Sign it up, Cole Haan.
Bryce Hopkins to win the Providence vote. Providence is going to be a swing city in the election.
Swing City.
Yeah, Swing City.
It'll be a swing city.
I think I know where Providence is going.
Yeah, this is before we get in any more trouble. This has been the DTF Podcast. We'll see you guys soon. Come check us out while we're on the streams. It'll be at Floyd Street Media on YouTube. Louisville fans, come hang out with us. Me and T.O., I promise you, we'll have a good time.